Good evening, Tansei, and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced his nomination for the next Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. If confirmed, Michelle O'Bonsawin would be the first Indigenous person to sit on the country's highest bench. Trudeau made the announcement on Friday. In a press release, he said Justice O'Bonsawin is an accomplished jurist with expertise in the areas of mental health, Gladue principles, labor and employment law, human rights and privacy law, and has been a judge of the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in Ottawa since 2017. O'Bonsawin is a member of the Odanak-Abenaki First Nation. This nomination fills the vacancy created by the upcoming retirement of the Honourable Michael J. Moldaver. A special parliamentary committee hearing on O'Bonsawin's nomination will be held on August 24th. It was some bad news and good news from Statistics Canada earlier this week. The 2021 census shows fewer people speak in Indigenous language, but it also shows the number of children 8 and under able to speak in Indigenous language more than doubled between 2016 and 2021, from just under 12,000 to almost 29,000 children. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Kevin Lewis teaches Cree at the University of Saskatchewan, and he says the interest in learning the language is definitely there, but governments need to provide more funding for programming.
I would promote to the school boards, the school districts, to the principals, administrators, maybe even the politicians, to let them know, there's your call to action. There's these kids that are wanting to learn. Let's invest in them. Let's invest in those teacher education programs.
Lewis says more investment in Indigenous languages and culture will make them a part of everyday life.
These languages haven't been normal because of residential schools, 60 scoops. People were just taken away. So the idea is normalizing the language, normalizing it in the community events, going to church, going to ceremony, going to a gathering, whatever gathering that might be.
At the same time, the total number of people able to speak an Indigenous language dropped from 251,000 to 243,000.
And
Nunavut MP Lori Idlout says this is a cause for concern.
From 2016, it's unfortunate that we are seeing fewer Indigenous language speakers. So to me, that means that the impact of colonialism is still quite deep, and that we all need to do our part to make sure that we're revitalizing and promoting and protecting Indigenous languages.
She says Indigenous languages need to be recognized by the federal government in the same way Canada's 2 official languages are.
To make sure that we're doing better investments, including maybe allowing bilingual bonuses for federal employees that are Indigenous, because as it is, the only federal employees that get bilingual bonuses are from speakers of either languages. So it would be great to allow federal employees that are Indigenous to also get that bilingual bonus.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
we want to hear what you think about the Statistics Canada census. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca, or you can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. It's that time of the year again, the new school year. While classes are set to begin or have already begun across the north, as Sarah Connors tells us, schools are struggling to fill teacher vacancies.
The new school year is right around the corner, but for some schools across the territories, and especially those in rural or isolated communities, there's a problem. There's not enough teachers.
We're not able to adequately meet the needs of the children in the appropriate grades.
Dylan Loblaw is the chief of Ross River Dennett Council in Ross River, Yukon. He says 2 of his children in different grades will have to share a classroom because there's unfilled positions at the local school.
As a parent, I'm concerned about their learning and how it's going to affect them in the later grades.
According to the most recent data, there are currently 34 teacher vacancies in Yukon, 19 of which are in rural communities, and it's a trend across the north. In the Northwest Territories, that number is 35, with 28 vacancies in communities. And in Nunavut, 105 positions are unfilled, the highest it's been in 4 years.
I think the biggest solution really is we have to work together.
Melanie Bennett is the executive director for the Yukon First Nation Education Directorate. She says she's never seen vacancies like this before, and rural schools will be impacted the most.
It's going to put a lot of pressure on the administrators in the schools, families, parents. That's probably leading to their anxiety.
Bennett notes the Yukon's high cost of living, lack of housing, and a roster of temporary teaching positions isn't helping the situation.
It's hard to recruit that. Not many people want to strike up and move and change their life to come to the Yukon on a temporary position. They're usually looking for something that's permanent.
According to Nicole Morgan, Yukon's Deputy Minister of Education, the teacher shortage is being felt nationwide. But in the north, where schools have to compete with the south, coupled with disruptions of COVID, hiring issues are amplified.
My hunch is it hasn't been a normal school year for 3 full school years, that some of those teachers are potential long-term teachers may have decided different area, different career might be for them.
She also says there's fewer teachers coming out of post-secondary because of the pandemic, and that teacher shortages will likely be the trend for the next couple of years. To fill the gaps, that means Yukon schools will be using non-enrolling teachers, like learning assistant teachers and counselors, to help with teaching.
And of course, those specialized roles are very important. And in an ideal world, that's what we would want. That's how we would staff a school. But that's not the reality in front of us right now.
Chief Loblaw hopes vacancies can be filled quickly so all children could get the education they deserve.
No, we just want what's best for our children and our youth, and to get them the best education and the best learning that they can get.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
The feds were on hand in Iqaluit today to announce $3 million in funding for Nunavut's Airlines to support service to more remote communities. Now that's pretty standard, but our Kent Driscoll reports that things got interesting when government officials revealed just how close they came to losing air service at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. This from Iqaluit.
The Parliamentary Secretary for Finance and the Nunavut Deputy Minister of Executive and Intergovernmental Affairs were at the Iqaluit Airport to announce another pot of funding for Nunavut's Airlines today. This one for $3 million.
And as we stand together in Canada's northernmost city, I don't have to tell anyone here why it's so important for those transportation networks to remain strong and for communities to stay connected. And
Nunavut has received over $30 million to support private airlines with public money since COVID-19 hit. Every community in Nunavut is a fly-in community. The airlines are the lifeline to the rest of the country. According to this Nunavut Deputy Minister, the system was closer to collapse than most of us knew.
Early in the pandemic, we were very close to losing scheduled air service to most Nunavut communities. It's not an exaggeration to say we were hours or days away from losing this link.
Right now, there's an airline fuel shortage in 4 Nunavut high Arctic communities. As usual, Nunavut's various crises impact each other. It turns out that when Iqaluit's water system was shut down late last year, the disruption was felt in the high Arctic.
So as you'll remember, for several months we were flying in water to Iqaluit and using up all the resources here. What that led to airlines having to route around Iqaluit and use a lot more fuel than they would normally in places like Pond Inlet, Diglulik, Cougar. So a lot of the assumptions that we used in order of how much fuel would be used were kind of thrown out the window by the water emergency.
It's hard to overestimate how much Nunavut relies on airlines. They're the ambulance. They fill the grocery stores. COVID-19 showed us just how fragile that link is, and more funding today shows that subsidizing Nunavut's airlines could outlast the pandemic. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
All right, we need to step aside for a short break, but still to come. The Niska Nation will be traveling to Scotland to discuss the repatriation of a stolen totem pole.
But all these poles that were taken were never fallen on their own. So, in other words, they're still alive.
Welcome back. Help is on the way for the northern Quebec region of Nunavik. After turning down a request for military assistance, Quebec says it's ready to send up relief workers with the Red Cross. The Nunavik Regional Board of Health and Social Services asked the province to send in the military to address a severe staff shortage, which only worsened with the pandemic. They say some villages have fewer than 4 nurses working at a time. In response, Quebec has issued a call for nurses, physicians, and management to help out along with the Red Cross, but the Regional Health Board says other gaps need to be addressed to permanently fix the staffing issue.
The working conditions, the living conditions in the north need to be improved. It's an ongoing challenge, and if we could work on that together with the different organizations, I'm sure it would alleviate a lot of the challenges we're currently facing with.
There's now a handful of First Nations in Quebec who've served big industry with legal notices in 2022. The Innu community of Totem in Quebec is the latest to do so, demanding that Murchison Mining immediately cease exploration activities on the ancestral lands of 2 Innu families. Chief Mike McKenzie says neither Quebec nor Murchison Mining took the community's concerns into consideration during consultations a few months ago. According to McKenzie, Quebec issued an exploration permit allowing the company to operate without consent, adding that the St. Onge family and the Chernish family, whose land is being explored, are both asking for the complete withdrawal of the company.
On a déjà fait des démonstrations ultérieurement avec dans d'autres dossiers. On est allé jusqu'à la Cour suprême, fait que on est prêt encore à se battre contre ceux qui gravitent autour du territoire sans le consentement de la communauté de Ouachata-Palutenam.
A delegation from the Niska Nation will be traveling to Scotland. They want to discuss the repatriation of a stolen totem pole. Next week will be the first in-person meeting between the BC First Nation and the National Museum of Scotland. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
It all started from our
Samogat Niska, or Chief Earl Stevens, is excited. For the first time in living memory, members of the Niska House will see a memorial pole stolen from their community. They are traveling to the National Museum of Scotland, where the totem pole carved in the mid-1850s is on display. Nish Jowl says they have a spiritual belief that stolen totem poles are still alive.
When they become fallen and on their own, that's when they're not alive anymore. But all these poles that were taken were never fallen on their own. So, in other words, they're still alive.
A replica pole stands in the Niska community Lakazap. The memorial pole tells the story of a Niska warrior, Jowett, who was in line to be chief but died in battle. According to the Niska Nation, well-known ethnographer Marius Barbeau took the pole in 1929 without the consent of the Niska House Nishjao. At a time their members were away fishing and food harvesting. Dr. Amy Parent is a Niska member and research chair of Indigenous education at Simon Fraser University. She says the pole was taken at the peak of the potlatch ban and other Canadian colonial practices.
It wasn't that we abandoned our villages or that we weren't caring for poles. We were simply out food fishing. And so for us, I think that the modern day equivalent is like us going to the grocery store and then having the government come along and sell your house and allow some anthropologists to come in and take all your priceless family belongings. And then shortly thereafterwards, you're going to have church officials show up and take your children away.
On Monday, the Niska Nation members will meet with the staff of the National Museum of Scotland. They will have in-person discussions about the nation's desire to have the totem pole repatriated back to their people. Samogat Nishjao shared that traveling to the totem pole has been on the mind of his family for a long time. His uncles had discussions and have since passed on.
There's 3 of them that we're talking about going over to see the pole or to take it back, but that never happened because they're all gone now. They're not with us anymore.
The delegation will ask for the Government of Scotland and the National Museum of Scotland to pay for the transportation of the memorial pole back to the Niska Nation. They want to honor their ancestors and have this piece of culture and history so the next generation can learn their stories.
Honoring our dear fallen ancestor, Jowett, who was one of our true warriors who died with the honor of protecting our family and our nation's sovereignty. And then when we look to the future, I think we want our children to wake up every day and not to have to search so hard for the stories of who we are.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Lakalzap.
All right, it's time for one final break, but still to come. The Clicho Nation is celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the last signed numbered treaty in Canada. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This photo was sent in by Jenna Presley. Jenna was near Pine Falls, Manitoba when she was able to get this great photo shortly after the rain had stopped and clouds opened up to let the sun shine upon Mother Earth once again. You can send in your photos by email to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. We start on the East Coast, clear and 25 in Halifax and 25 in Fredericton. 15 and some showers in Cartwright and 23 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 28 in sun in Quebec City and 27 in Val-d'Or. 29 and some showers in Sarnia and 29 in North Bay. 19 in showers in Wawa and 25 in Sioux Lookout. 28 degrees in Thompson and 29 in Puckatawagan. 26 in sun in Barons River and 27 in Winnipeg. 29 in clear in Regina and 33 in clear in Saskatoon. 30 degrees in Meadow Lake and 29 in Buffalo Narrows. Moving west, rain and 28 in Fort Chipewyan and 28 in Peace River. 32 in showers in Edmonton and 30 in showers in Calgary. 27 degrees in Campbell River and 29 in Bella Coola. 21 in Sandspit and 24 in Dease Lake. 20 degrees in sunny in Mayo and 19 in Old Crow. 17 in Norman Wells and 20 in Yellowknife. Some showers in 13 in Colville Lake and 11 in Inuvik. 15 in Baker Lake and 15 in Chesterfield. 9 degrees in Iqaluit and 9 degrees in Iqaluit. All this week, the Clicho Nation has been celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the last signed numbered treaty in Canada. As our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs explains, it's a time to commemorate the spirit and intent of Indigenous signatories.
It's a celebration to honor Clicho culture and a way of life by remembering the past and the wisdom of Chief Mahi. This week, Clicho Nation is commemorating the 100-year anniversary of the signing of Treaty 11, kicking things off with a historical reenactment.
Today, the words he said still lives on. As long as the river does not flow backward, the sun rises and the land does not move, we shall not be restricted from our way of life.
Treaty 11 was signed by the Crown and more than a dozen Gwich'in, Satu-Dene, Decho-Dene, and Clicho communities in 1921.
Mohi and his people agreed to sign.
Chief Mohi, a Clicho signatory for Treaty 11, was considered to be a devoted leader. Having been postponed last summer due to the pandemic, Frederick So is happy the festival is a go this year. Originally from Bechucon, but living down south, he's visiting from Alberta.
I had a big family here. That's why I'm here. This is the best celebration I've ever been to.
His dad was born in 1922, a year after the signing.
All the people are respectful. All the older people that I know are really respectful towards the idea of the principle of the signing of the treaty, right?
The festival is also a reminder of broken promises from Canada. For decades, many living under Treaty 11 didn't know what the text said until the government's version of the treaty was finally translated and read to an assembly of Dene chiefs in 1969.
Treaty was being contemplated by Canada that we were already in a ward state, meaning that we had no control at the time over our lands, our culture and way of life.
John Bizot, a Clicho historian, says the spirit and intent held by Mahi and Clicho people in treaty influences decision-making today.
The Clicho people decided to get into a land agreement in 1992. We relied very heavily on our elder advisors, elders like Alexis Arbeker, who was living under the roof of Mohi, so we had direct contact.
Cleatcho Pride will continue long after the festivities are over. The Cleatcho government is sending membership home with a print of this Mahi portrait.
It's really an honor, and really happy that my artwork's out there, and it'll be in every Cleatcho home in the 4 communities, possibly outside of the Cleatcho territory as well.
Portrait artist Daryl Chocolate says the piece represents Cleatcho's relationship to culture and a way of life.
Like the photo of Chief Mofui was in black and white. I just colorized it. So you can say that it can help the younger generation to portray history and art.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Bechercombe.
All right, that's all we have for you for this Friday edition of APTN National News. As always, you can head to our website, aptnnews.ca, for more Indigenous news. I'm Daryl Stranger. For all of us here, thank you for joining us. Miigwech, and have a great night.